Good evening. I hereby call the action session of the Board of Commissioners for Thursday, August the 30th. Would you please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Guard, halt, left, face, freeze, and arm. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, arm. Outward, face, forward, march. Color guard, halt. Prepare to post. Post. Freeze and arm. Order. Arm. Inward. Face. Forward. March. Guard. Halt. Outward. Face. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold, Commissioner Bentley,
Here.
Secretary Gore,
Here.
Commissioner Hoops,
Here.
Vice President Moore, President O'Connor, Commissioner Sullivan.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Hall. We will now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda was received on Tuesday and reflects all necessary modifications and additions. Reviewing the modified agenda, are there any requests or changes to the agenda as presented? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Our first student performance of the 2018-19 school year will be provided by Ignite Achievement Choir from Elder Diggs School 42. The Ignite Voices of Fire Choir is under the direction of Mark Pay. School music and choral director will perform the song Opportunity. Please join me in welcoming the students from Ignite Achievement Academy.
under the glow of the very bright lights. I turn my face towards the one night skies, and I'm not afraid of 1,000 eyes when they're above 500 smiles. Oh, I used to think, wouldn't I give from moments like this? This moment is gift. Now look at me, and this opportunity is standing right in front of me. One thing I know is I'll be part of indoors. I'm putting on my best show under the spotlight. We're starting my life. Big dreams become real tonight. So look at me and this opportunity. You're witnessing my moment, you see. My big opportunity. And now I'm here, and it's time. 'Cause this is real, and it's all mine. I'm not afraid to fly when it's above 500 smiles. Oh, I used to think, wouldn't I give from moments like this? This moment is gift. And now look at me, and this opportunity is standing right in front of me. One thing I know is I'll be part of them doors. I'm putting on my best show under the spotlight. We're starting my life. Big dreams become real tonight. So look at me and this opportunity. You're witnessing my moment, you see. My big opportunity. I won't waste it. I guarantee.
Thank you so much. Didn't they do a beautiful job? Let's give them another hand.
Also, Commissioner Gore, just want to recognize, I know he left the room with the group, but Principal Shaquan Eli was with the team as well. And let's just give the young people another round of applause. They did a great job.
We have several special recognitions to make this evening. Commissioner Hoops, would you introduce our first honoree?
Sure. Each month during our board action session, we'd like to take a moment to honor a few of our parents and community partners who will make our IPS school community so wonderful. Tonight, we have several honorees we'd like to acknowledge. First, the Board of School Commissioners wish to recognize the Community Behavioral Health Network school-based program, formerly known as Gallahue, for 20 years of outstanding service to the students and families of our district. Accepting on behalf of community is George Hurd, the Vice President of Community Behavioral Health and the CEO of Gallahue Community Mental Health. Over the last 20 years, this program has grown from one school to more than 20. It It's provided mental health services including counseling, school, staff support, and professional development to improve the well-being of our students and school communities. We thank Community Behavioral Health under the leadership of Mr. Hurd for their 2 decades of service and their ongoing commitment to Indianapolis Public Schools. We'd also like to recognize Joan Reed, Director of Operations from the school-based program with Community Behavioral Health. Ms. Reed has been on the job since day one, starting as a school-based therapist and rising through the ranks. We are grateful for her commitment, dedication, and immeasurable contribution to our district and congratulate her on her 20 years of service. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Next, we'd like to honor a pair of organizations that have gone above and beyond to provide school supplies for our teachers and students. We'd like to acknowledge Teachers Treasures. Accepting on behalf of the organization is Margaret Sheehan, Executive Director. Teachers Treasures distributes free school supplies to teachers of students in need. This wonderful organization has partnered with IPS for 18 years, helping thousands of teachers. In addition to their free store that allows teachers to shop for what they need most, this year, Teachers Treasures provided IPS students with nearly 9,000 backpacks loaded with school supplies. Because of their generosity, many of our students have the tools they need to be successful in the classroom. Many thanks to Ms. Sheehan and everyone at Teachers Treasures for your outpouring of support.
We'd also like to recognize Indie Backpack Attack. Accepting on their behalf is Tiffany Dial with member organization UPS and Mandy Emery with member organization Indiana Members Credit Union. Indie Backpack Attack is celebrating 20 years of helping students get their essential tools they need to excel in the classroom. Through collaboration with local businesses and partners, they collect school supplies and backpacks that are distributed to more than 70 IPS schools, benefiting more than 20,000 students each year. In addition to these efforts, this year the organization provided more than 2,000 backpacks to our Back to School Festival thanks to a generous donation from Teachers Treasures. Indie Backpack Attack not only donated the backpacks, they also provided volunteers to distribute the bags to hundreds of children. Thank you, Mrs. Dial and Ms. Emery, on behalf of Indie Backpack Attack for your service. Indie Backpack Attack also has a recognition of their own they would like to make.
Thank you. Our operation relies solely on the volunteers and the community. We also rely heavily on IPS and as well as the social workers so that we know what the students are needing. It's very hard to plan what's going to happen in the warehouse since it is based off of volunteers and donations. So sometimes when you're trying to forecast what's about to happen, the hat falls and you have no clue what's going on. And when that happens, there's always been one person that has been able to help us with that. And he never sweats about it, never worries, and that person is Chip Ford. Chip? He always has a smile on his face, just like he does now. And he always says, "It's good, Miss Tiff, we got this, we can handle it." And we couldn't do it without what he does for us and the positive support that he provides for the students.
you to all of our honorees this evening. Moving to section 3, open comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer comments? Thank you. We will now receive public comments from those individuals who have signed up to offer comments to the board this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Adam Walensky is our first speaker this evening, please.
As he comes up, I will remind all of our speakers that you are allowed 3 minutes to offer comments to the board. A timer will start when you begin, and I ask that you briefly conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off. Comments should be directed to the board collectively, should not be abusive or disruptive, and should not address a topic that might be of confidential nature or that would compromise the impartiality of the board. I also remind our speakers that while the board is happy to receive your comments, we will not respond or answer questions at this time. If you signed up to speak, Mr. G will call you, as he has already, and speak before the board. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners and Dr. Farabee. I'm Adam Walensky. I'm the Regional Executive of Smoot Construction. Just giving a brief reintroduction of our company to the board tonight. So Smoot Construction, a minority-owned company formed in 1946, started as masonry subcontractors, and 3 brothers coming out of the war. One was able to save $300, send it home to his wife, and his wife said, either we're going to make a business of this or we're heading back to the hills of West Virginia. So they traveled to get work at that time. They traveled through the Midwest, up and down the eastern seaboard, down through Florida, and then settled in Columbus, Ohio in 1956. Started the general contracting business in 1972. We're into our 3rd generation now. We followed Gilbane Construction to Washington, D.C. in 1967. We have done 7 projects on the National Mall. You've got some information in front of you. You can follow along if you'd like. From the office in D.C. in 67, we were brought to Indianapolis by then Mayor Goldsmith in 1991 and did a program called Building Better Neighborhoods. It was $500 million of infrastructure, and we were an extension of city staff. Smoot Construction has truly been blessed, as I said, to be a part of lots of exciting programs. The 7 projects on the National Mall, a hidden gem here in Indianapolis. We were the company that renovated the Capitol Dome of the United States of America. We were part of the building team that built the African American Museum of Natural History. We're at Air and Space right now. We do a ton of K through 12 in all 3 offices. Here in Indianapolis, we've really been a steward of public funds. Lucas Oil, JW Marriott, Eskenazi Hospital, the airport. I was at the airport for 4 years. I was at Eskenazi for 4 years myself. Starting in the early 90s, we did a number of IPS schools. We've done 6 IPS programs, and we're currently doing a Washington Township elementary, your neighbor to the north. Some of the bigger programs we've done, $770 million program in Columbus, Ohio for Columbus City Schools. We've done 2 big programs in Washington, D.C., one of which was the first LEED Platinum school in the nation. We have $1.5 billion of K through 12 resume, which makes us a school builder. And with that, it looks like I am finishing up, and I'd like to thank you for your time tonight and look forward to talking more in the future. Thank you.
Next, we have Nathan Harris, if present, please.
Good evening, Board. citizens, people. Again, as before, I'm delighted to stand before you. And again, the main topic that I'm representing tonight is how to better serve low-income students who are, I understand, 80% of the population of the students that you serve. And so first of all, there are some decisions that money shouldn't drive, things that are just right to do, that you feel responsible for, example, for education students regardless of their economic status, and have programs that are readily available to keep them off the streets. These students need your sincere help and your service. They rely on you. They want your help. They may not say it. They may not articulate it in the right way, but they do. So don't rest satisfied while many of your students suffer as you tend to programs that may make you look good and may look good to others, but dig deep and do the trench work that may be difficult to do. Champion tough at-risk student issues and the issues that no one else seems to care for. Step up, step forward, assert yourself. There are many programs that are available across the country that are proven that will be very good for these kids who have academic issues who are low income. So seek those programs, seek the ones that are proven. Be different from other school systems that are public schools, maybe similar to you, that are in urban areas whose actions indicate that they don't care about students. Be different. Show us that you do. Be different in the eyes of the students, in the eyes of their parents, in the eyes of the community. You are IPS. You've always stood for the students. Now's the time to step up when the students and the parents truly need your help.
Thank you. If President Elad Nichols Kaufman, please. If President Dantanya Batts, please.
Greetings. The IPS Community Coalition remains undecided about whether or not to support the IPS's $52 million capital projects referendum or the $220 million operations referendum. The referendum journey the IPS administration and the school board have taken the IPS community through since November has not been completely transparent, as well as rife with major changes to the proposals, each change unanimously voted by the IPS Board of Commissioners with little to no public discussion. It is a journey we likely never would occur in Indianapolis's more affluent public school districts. The latest approval of the operating referendum amount to its lowest level, $220 million, includes compromises made with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce on behalf of the wider business community. This was approved on July 24th to the surprise of IPSCC. At the IPS School Board review session without any advance notice to the public nor an option of a specified public hearing. Legally, the public has a right to transparency of the process and access to information. Although the district has modestly improved financial transparency by providing multiple documents on myips.org, the addition of 20 innovation schools, detailed explanations for the changes in the numbers over the past 5 years are required. The addition of the 20 Innovation Network schools in the district creates an additional urgency for transparency, as they are autonomous schools under the IPS umbrella managed by outside companies, organizations, and leaders. The benefits they may receive from the referenda needs to be made unquestionably clear. The IPS Community Coalition wants our teachers and staff to receive the pay and resources they need to successfully educate all of our children. But we need to be reassured in detail with data that they will indeed receive the resources. The IPS Community Coalition has 6 areas of concern we need IPS to publicly address by the IPS Board Action Session on September 27th for us to make a decision to support or oppose the requests. 1, the lack of detailed plan of how the funds raised from the referenda will be spent. The lack of a clear plan for informing the public about the referenda prior to each of the boards, at least 4 votes to approve and or lower the amount of the capital projects and operating proposals. The lack of discussion of the compromises IPS made with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce in order to gain its support. The lack of a clear explanation of why IPS expenditures have consistently increased, yet deficit budgets have been approved the last few years. The lack of a clear explanation for the public about expenditure changes via a comprehensive annual financial report to elaborate upon financial decisions. And finally, 6, the lack of a clear plan for improving chronically struggling IPS schools before turning them over to charter or other independent partners to become Innovation Network schools. Thank you for your time.
Secretary Gore, that concludes public comment this evening.
Thank you. Having received our opening public comments, we will now proceed to our consent agenda. The items included on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary modifications. Are there any questions or requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Any questions? Been moved, second. We will now move to our second, beg pardon. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving to section 5, board reports. Commissioner Bentley, would you please provide a brief update from the Finance Committee?
I will, thank you. The Finance Committee, am I on? I am now. Okay, thanks. The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, August 15th. We reviewed the debt management policy and a refinancing opportunity for nearly $100 million of 2009 bonds. The committee approved this, and I think are we voting on this tonight? Yes.
Yes.
The committee did ensure that the consideration is limited by a 3% savings requirement, net of fees, for refunding in accordance with board policy. It includes designation as MBE, WBE participation. It includes designation as MBE, WBE, or participation of MBE, WBE as a criteria for the selection of the underwriter. And a new business item 8.05 for approval to proceed with evaluating the market for refunding. So in essence, we're not voting to do the refunding, we're voting to move forward with evaluation of whether or not it's feasible and whether or not there'll be enough savings, because under the board's policy, there needs to be 3% savings in order to move forward. The committee accepted the State Board of Accounts audit for the school year 2016-2017, and that's included in the materials on board docs. And then we got an update on the system tech upgrades, Munis, and some other upgrades. And then House Enrolled Act 1009, finance reporting, which establishes 2 funds, the education fund and the operating fund, which is going to change how we financially report our, do our financial reporting. And I think the committee is going to meet again in, I want to say October, because it is quarterly. Was it October? To be determined. But I would again invite individuals from the community to come to our finance committee meetings. It's been unfortunate that the individual who spoke earlier from the Community Coalition, I don't believe they've ever been to a finance committee, and they could learn a lot about the IPS finances if they attended one of those committee meetings. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bentley.
I'd just like to reiterate Commissioner Bentley's invitation to come to these meetings. I attended my first Finance Committee meeting with Commissioner Hoops. Really, really good conversation, very helpful in understanding many of the issues that come to us later down the road. And I think that anyone who's very interested in IPS would benefit tremendously from coming and listening and learning. Thank you.
Thank you. This was an open invitation there. Having received board reports, I will now turn the agenda over to Dr. Farabee for superintendent reports.
Thank you, Commissioner Gore. Good evening, Commissioners. There are 3 superintendent reports this evening in Section 6. The first is our school spotlight, and it is the first of the 2018-19 school year. It's my pleasure to introduce to you this evening the principal of our new second partnership with Butler University and our lab partnership. This is Nicole Kent. She is coming to us as the principal, but she previously served at William Bell School 60 as well, and we're excited to feature the IPS Butler Lab partnership at Eliza Blaker School 55 as our school spotlight for the month of August. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm excited to be leading the charge at School 55, and I'm excited to share what we've been up to so far this school year. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a little bit about who we are, our partnership with Butler University, how we've been working really hard to build a school community and to foster a strong learning environment for our students. I wanted to start by mentioning that Eliza Blaker, who School 55 is named after, it does provide a tie to Butler University. Eliza Blaker was an impactful leader in education in our city, and she fought for kindergarten for all children in the 1880s. She established the Teachers College of Indianapolis, which later became the College of Education at Butler University. So we are excited to be present in the building that has a connection, a leader from our city's past that is connected to the university. And Dr. Shelley, the Dean of the College of Education, has said, every day you take a child to kindergarten, you can thank Eliza Blaker for that. So some of the key pieces of our school, we are a Reggio-inspired school, which means we're inspired by the work happening in Reggio Emilia, Italy. So we're a progressive environment. We believe children have 100 languages. They have different ways of expressing themselves. So we have arts integration. We have ways that we want to provide children with many opportunities to show what they're learning. We also include project-based learning, so it's an inquiry-rich environment where children are asking questions, children are wondering, and they're able to, their questions impact the learning that happens, and we follow their curiosities and include that in our curriculum. We also use the philosophy, the responsive classroom philosophy, and this is a structure that we have in place. It includes morning meetings, closing meetings, strong community building opportunities in the classroom. And along with that, we're doing a lot of work in educational neuroscience and teaching students about their brain, about how to regulate and how to be in the right brain state to really learn as much as they can each day at school. And we are also a workshop school, so we use reading, writing, and math workshop, which ties really nicely to the Reggio approach. It allows for differentiation, for students to be working at their level, and for teachers to challenge students or support students as necessary in the classroom. Our partnership with Butler University, we have Butler classes held on site. We also have practicum students and student teachers that will begin in our classroom, and we collaborate with the Butler professors. So it's a mutual relationship where the students and professors at Butler are able to learn from what's happening in our classrooms, and then in turn, we're also able to collaborate with them and learn from them as well. A main goal we have right now is building a really strong school community. We recognize that we have students who were previously at School 55 who have stayed with us. We have some students from School 60 who have come over to School 55, and then we have students coming from private schools, from other IPS programs, students who were previously homeschooled. So it's really important to us that all students feel a sense of belonging in this first year. Some of the opportunities that we've had have included a family play date over the summer where families could meet one another and get to know each other. We had our back to school night, and teachers also had family visits before the school year started as a way to build that positive relationship. We also have been intentional about teacher training. So over the summer, making sure that teachers were really prepared to start this school year off. And many teachers attended responsive classroom training, which is important to our philosophy. And we also have teacher leaders from School 60 that have joined us at School 55 who have done a lot of work in the educational neuroscience area that I spoke to. And they also provided training to our teachers before the school year started. In that area, we're doing things with our morning announcements, like taking deep breaths as a school, learning some breathing techniques, and using that also as our whole school community building. For new teachers to our lab school program, we have a new teacher training where we make sure that they have a foundation in our philosophy and that they're prepared for to start the school year and to really feel confident in the Reggio-inspired approach that we offer. And we also made time for curriculum writing so that we were really prepared for the school year and ready to dive in with the students. I wanted to start the school year off with a really positive experience, so we did a whole school kickoff on the first day of school. We'll continue with school-wide meetings throughout the year, but on the first day, it was a great way to gather the whole community, start our year on a positive note together. We also have classroom community building. We have morning meetings that happen daily in the classroom that kind of parallel the school-wide meetings and make sure we're building that community daily. And I want to end by telling you the story of the Bolt Dog. So the children have helped us become the Butler Bolt Dogs at School 55. Last year, in previous years, School 55's logo was the Bolt. And I had the opportunity to make my transition to 55 in May of last school year. And I really wanted to find a way to engage the students who were currently at 55 last year and who were staying with us so that they would feel a sense of ownership within this change and transition. So we surveyed the students, and they initially told us they wanted to be the Bulldogs. We allowed students opportunities in art classes to draw the bulldog and to come up with ideas for our logo. And we challenged them to include a bolt as a sign of respect and a way to keep the history of the school alive. And one of the students, they wrote Butler Bolt Dog on their artwork when they turned it in, and we just thought that was a fabulous idea. So we turned it back over to the kids again and asked them, do we want to be the Bulldogs or do we want to be the Bolt Dogs? And the overwhelming response was the Bolt Dogs. So we're all really excited that the children have helped us to make that decision and have already impacted the school community at 55, and looking forward to see what else they do throughout this school year. Thank you.
Any questions? I just had, thank you. How many teachers came over from 60 to see the new school?
Yes, I think it was 11 teachers.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right. So it was a good group.
Yes.
And then about how many families, because I know we made it sort of voluntary.
Yes.
How many families came over to 55?
15.
Okay.
Mhm.
Different grade levels and.
Yeah, different grade levels.
Okay. And then is your kindergarten full?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just remind me what the student population is?
We're serving around 300 students at this time. Mhm.
What does your diversity look like there at the school this year?
So I don't have the formal data on that yet, but it is a diverse population from, you know, what I know so far. We don't have the formal numbers that we've pulled.
For that?
Yes, yeah.
So we're just asking all these, thank you very much. So we're just asking all these kind of demographic questions.
Yes.
But I have heard that you were able to retain many of the students
Yes.
who were previously at the school, that they didn't decide to go elsewhere. And I know it's a very different type of programming than what they had previously experienced. So kind of what numbers of kids stayed, majority or half or?
Yeah, it was the majority of students. Some students did tell us that they were staying and then moved over the summer and didn't end up returning. So I would estimate around, 140 students that stayed. And I think they had 180 students last school year. That's a rough estimate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we at capacity there?
We still have seats currently, and we have added those portable classrooms outside. So we are already using 3 of those as full classrooms where students, are with their teachers daily. And then we have some where more teacher coach positions or those types of positions are using to pull small groups of students. So we still have more space this year, and then plans to grow. Mm-hmm.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
your
me.
update.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate the presentation. Excited about your leadership.
Thank you.
Commissioners, the next report is our quarterly finance update. Chief Financial Manager Weston Young will provide an update on the close of the fourth quarter and reporting for the 2017-18 school year, which includes an update on district funds, financial management of projects, priorities, and initiatives in progress. Thank you, sir. Weston, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. We'll be reviewing not just the fourth quarter finance, but the full year, 17-18 school year. I want to remind the board and also the community members that we are posting more and more data to our website. We also have appendices in this presentation, which we don't necessarily go through every time, but there's some significant information in there that we provide for more detail on the IPS financial experience, both current and historical. We also provide key metrics, inflation, state budget growth, percentage of K-12 spending of the state budget, key metrics that we use for future impacts on the IPS financials and also from a federal, state, and local perspective. We also provide illustrations. A lot of times people, how are schools funded? And we've tried to use this funnel approach and then an example table approach. I just want to make sure we remind people that those are out there and for information and to learn more about the school's finances. At the same time, on our finance page of myips.org, we have budget development documents from the last number of years. We've got our audits that are current through 16-17. We have our annual state reports called the Form 9. That is basically the unaudited, the state form. That financial data is presented by every school district that's out there back to 2010. Finance committee materials, previous quarterly finance update materials, and also links to the state reporting sites that have that same information. Each quarter, we review just a snapshot slide of this bar chart, and this is the full year, so we have all of the property tax received, we have all of the expenditures reported. And what you'll note here is that in the total columns, general fund expenditures, which are the blue bar, are in line with our budget for 17-18. And this includes some of the additional appropriation that we had approved in May. We also have revenues that are in the blue that are above the projection, and this was mainly because of additional students that were added to the IPS population after the budget was approved. At the same time, we also this year, year over year, had an increase because of the real estate sale of primarily skips. $12 million received for the skip sale. In the orange, there's our debt payments, about $54 million year to date, or for the year. But this is an item we've talked about the last year through the board appropriation budget process and also each quarterly update that we did receive less debt service funds, but that's because the DLGF told IPS we were going to use our cash balance to pay one portion of our year's debt payments. So we stayed current with our debt payments, but we lowered our cash balance. And you'll see that reflected on a couple pages further when we review the cash balances. And the capital projects expenditures, the green bar, you'll see that the expenditures were in line with revenues. In the transportation funds, which are both the yellow and the purple, we're going to highlight this more in a future slide, but between the two funds, year over year, we've spent $5 million less. And so we've brought a lot of proposals. We've talked a lot with the community. We've been working on those transportation models, and Manny's going to share a little bit of the details on that. So more information about each of these funds, again, is in the appendices on our website. So this is a slide that's typically in the appendix, but I brought it up because now we have 6/30/2018. What was the balance? We have a balance in the general and rainy day funds about $39 million. Debt service, you'll see, went from $26 million down to $5 million, and that's that DLGF saying, IPS, you need to use your cash balance to make your debt payments, and that's basically the amount that we'll probably continue on from here on out. The school lunch fund, we continue to spend down strategically, and the CPF transportation funds, surprisingly, had some revenue shifts and experienced some good things happening there and controlled our expenses. At the same time, other funds remain around $22 million. So total funds as of June 30th is $121 million. Our highlight on supply diversity, I want to go back on the cash balances. What drives our cash balances is our cash management policy. I just want to report that the cash management policy has a minimum floor of 8%, which is 1 month in reserves, and our general fund and CPF transportation funds meet that requirement. Related to supplier diversity, the last couple months we've highlighted strategic opportunities to deploy vendors that are MBE in specific projects. So for example, the high school reinvention projects, which Scott Barton has highlighted in the past months, the contract with Powers Davis, the joint venture project, is an MBE firm, and significant expenses are related to the high school project are not necessarily reflected in this January through June pie chart. A lot of those project payments were actually made in July. So I think we'll see an uptick in those expenditures come the next quarterly update. We also will highlight later in tonight's session where there's a proposed bond refinancing, which, as Commissioner Bentley relayed from the Finance Committee, that RFP parameter does have an MBE, WBE requirement. For the budget updates in 17-18, I highlighted that the appropriations that we reviewed in May, those were approved in June. As our finance team went towards the close of the year on June 30, we continued to monitor our expenditures so that we would not exceed the approved authorization to spend, and we did not exceed those, so we did well there. As far as the continued investment in strategic priorities, over the course of the year, a lot of focus has been on the facilities. Again, it brings a smile when I see Chip Ford. Just want to highlight his work. It could not have been happen without guys like Chip and gals. It's a phenomenal effort that they did, and kudos to that team. The systems that we've done, we've brought before the board, the launch of Kronos during the school year. That's provided a lot of new data, not a lot of new processing of decisions for our school leaders and our central office leaders, and also our student information system, Power School. And then again, transportation, we'll highlight that a little later. On the spending reductions, the decision to defer that referendum vote from May to November did accelerate the need to address expenditures and to conserve cash. And decision-making was focused on baseline needs to finish the 17-18 school year. with continued strategic preparation for the 18-19. So as we turn to the financial landscape slides, I'm going to highlight some revenue trends and some transportation slide. Revenue trends, we highlighted this last year for the first time. So we're looking at year over year, what is it that Team IPS has been working on to drive revenue other than ask for more tax dollars. So what we've been doing at the central team, focus on finance, with the SPED service team, with the student service team, with the finance committee, with our grant, our donor advancement, our opportunities to ask and align business partnerships with what we're doing. We've increased interest income. We've increased and maintained that new textbook rental amount. We've significantly increased Medicaid reimbursement, and we've significantly increased grant contributions. So those are annual operational revenues that have increased over the last 2 years to the tune of $2.4 million last year from 15-16, and this year almost $6 million than what it was in 15-16. And that's a credit to not Central Service. It's credit to Central Service supporting and going after what is it that drives revenue to the district. Interest rates, cash balance and interest rates. So we've done that. We've increased our yield. We've secured our investments, but we've also had the liquidity. So that's been strategic. And textbook rental, just tweaking a couple processes and adding communication with the schools has increased that. We've added credit card payment processing, Medicaid reimbursement, just doing small little things where 400 teachers at schools just responding to emails saying, yep, I did that. Yes, I served that kid in need. That generates dollars. And that's probably the biggest jump that I would not have believed that when Brent Freeman and Lisa Brenner started that project, but that is becoming how we fund some of the highest needs kids. The medical expansion of services is partly because of that medical reimbursement process. And the grant contributions funding significant initiatives on organizational capacity in our future centers is what we've received this past year. And then, why accountants go to work. They're looking at the accounts. Was it accounted for correctly? Well, we're looking at accounts over the past 10 years that have sat dormant. There's money in there, but it's not being used. When I came in 3 years ago, that was one of the items that we wanted to start looking at. And over the last 2 years, we've released restricted funds, almost $9.1 million to the CPF, the Capital Projects Fund, to the Transportation Fund, and just relieve some of the general fund deficit pressure. So that's a lot of work of reviewing transactions, making sure that it's right, because you're going to get audited on it. Like, to make those transfers is important, and we need to have all the documentation. So kudos to the team there. On the transportation front, I want to bring up Manny Mendez briefly here, just to highlight some of the tactical decisions that have been made to focus in on the transportation spend and contain those costs.
Good evening. So we've worked in tiers. So the first year we reduced the spend by $5 million. Where that leads us is to the optimized tier structure. And then we went into the propane buses, which we yielded a savings there as well versus the diesel buses. And we keep moving to optimize our routes. So all those efforts led us to that $5 million return to the district. This year, we're going to do the same thing. We've got our tier rework. We're going to go for optimization, and we're going to keep going after the savings. We will reduce our costs without sacrificing the on-time arrival for our students.
Thanks, Manny. So that's if we take a break, that's the 17-18 snapshot look back. The next couple slides start going into 18-19. So just want to stop any questions for 17-18.
I know Manny took his seat quickly, but I just want to. You ran away from any questions or comments, but I just want to just take a moment and have us think about how significant this is for the district. I know as we were and the board were considering and contemplating some of the decisions we made around transportation and the tiers to optimize route, it is good to see the fruits of that labor and to get a better understanding of how we are driving down cost of transportation, but also continue to deliver on time service. So just want to personally and publicly commend you and the team for that work, and we're excited about the potential of getting even better for the 2018-19 school year.
Thank you.
And I'd like to personally thank you, Mandy, for your help. When I've called you, you've been right there and taking care of our students the best you could, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. On the $5 million reduction, does that help, how much does that help plug the deficit in transportation? Because I know we just have, because of tax caps and other issues with revenue, we have not been able to cover those costs. And so I believe we still have a deficit, but I was wondering how that's changed.
Yeah. So one of the items that came up during the 6/30 tax payment receipt is that revenues were much more, they were higher than what was anticipated. So transportation in the operations fund actually had a positive surplus for the school year of about $3.4 million. And the bus replacement fund itself had about $1.6 million. So it was a cost containment and also a revenue shift on the upward, both wins for the district. And we're hoping that that continues, both revenue increasing on the transportation funds and also the cost containment.
Okay. And on that, and that's for last year, right?
Correct.
So this year, we're looking, because we increased the pay for our bus drivers, so that's going to impact that positive balance as well. I mean, we did that because we needed to do that.
Yes.
And
So those surpluses add to the cash balance in transportation. So that's when we have a surplus in a year, that is retained in a cash balance, which allows us for strategic deployment later on in another school year. That's, every year is a surplus or a deficit, but it's adding or decreasing to the cash balance.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to compliment both of you on your just constant efforts to try to find dollars, to make sure dollars are going where they need to go, the needs of kids, and leaving no stone unturned. Just really appreciate that. It's so clear that the people that do this work really care about this work, and I just want to thank you for that. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about because it's under continued cost management, but are you getting any early indications in terms of moving the high schools to a more central location? That was one of our criteria in making the selection to choose the buildings we did, and are you getting any early indications on that front?
Yes, we have reduced routes. Now, right now, I'm always very cautious when you speak to savings, and I'll always favor on the side of being conservative. But we will have some very good savings this year.
And then also a question that I get a lot from families. Is there any effort to find a way for families that are not using our transportation services and don't intend to use our transportation services to be taken off the routes? I know that's a problem because some people change their mind and then they're back in, but more of a real-time kind of movement on pickup.
Yeah, that is one of the issues that does plague us. The zero stops, because it increases the route time, which increases my bus count. We go out and deploy at the school. Our drivers provide us the route sheet with the checkoffs that this is a missed stop, there's no one there. Then we, in turn, contact the school. Is the child active, inactive? It is a process. For the first 6 weeks of school, it is so volatile. We have so many new students still coming into the system, plus child that has been accepted to another school and rerouting them. So it's just really volatile to try and level set a zero stop until a little later in the year. But we do have some successes as we go through. As soon as we can find the information, we remove the stop.
Commissioner Hoops.
I just wanted to also congratulate the whole team. It's actually a huge effort. SPED team and finance crews, transportation, just to have, you continue to have that optimizing the organization mindset, I think is continuing to serve us well, and obviously the dollars are showing that. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
I have another question. I do have another question. I just wanted to ask, because a couple people have brought this up to me. Did we cut bus assistance, or are bus assistance tied to a student that with?
We have not cut any bus assistance.
Okay.
We have increased that count.
And that bus assistants are basically connected to a student that has special needs. It's
Correct.
It's an exception rather than a rule on a bus that. 'Cause I know
That is correct.
I mean, it's going back a long way. I don't remember my children ever having a bus assistant unless there was a student with special needs on the bus.
Yeah, they play a great role on the ride for that child.
Okay, all right. But it's not a norm, we don't normally have aides on buses, is that?
It's not the norm, but it is a high percentile of my bus fleet.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I know it's early, but could you speak to the reduced extracurricular transportation? How is that going?
It's going pretty well. We're working to try and slim some of the spend. But without making it a huge sacrifice to the student base. We're still working through a lot of where we think we can strategically save. I did an initiative for the high school students. I created what we call a take-home route that's now part of a bid. So instead of it being strictly an extracurricular run, it is now part of the bid route. That gives me the stability, and it also helps level set the cost for those take-home routes for the after-school activities and athletic events. So it is progressing. I think we will see a good yield on the reduction without a major sacrifice to the children.
So moving on to the 18, thanks Manny. So now looking ahead at 18-19. With our budget reductions that were deployed in the May-June timeframe, we provided revised allocations to both central and school budgets. It was again teams asking to meet essential services while also looking at conserving cash. With the revised school allocations getting finalized, we soon will be posting our school by school allocations to our website in a similar fashion as what we did last year, and that will be on the SBA button on our finance page. On the cash flow considerations, we've talked a lot about cash flow considerations this last 3 or 4 months. Timing of cost savings initiatives, our capital and operating referenda considerations, leveraging our available general obligation bond capacity. So we reviewed those in a number of cases this past few months. Then also funding of strategic initiatives, again, our high school all-choice model, and then the systems and processes, not necessarily just IT, but also revamping and really reviewing in 18-19 our protocols, our processes, our policy on how we deploy an autonomous network of schools. And that's from the central side, how do we have policy and process to support that, not just systems. So getting into the financial landscape for 18-19, a little deeper than what we did in March. So this is the slide in February that was presented to the board during the budget development process. This is where we had the 4 board appropriated funds yielding the projected, at that time, based upon best available information, $45.1 million deficit across the 4 funds. In the general fund, about $26.3 million. Capital projects, negative $4.4 million deficit. Transportation and bus replacement combined about $15 million. On the next slide, what we've done is we've updated it as of the best available information in August 24th. So since that time, there's been a number of certifications that have come out from DLGF. We've got a brighter outlook on the assessed value for IPS in general, which is a very, very positive thing for us as a district and for the referendum ask, frankly. You'll see that the general fund, from the budget reductions that we have deployed, has brought the general projected deficit at this point about $17.3 million. Projected is a little less than what I was expecting because, one, there were some timing differences of payments that were not reflected in the budget, but we're looking at cash flow here. So what I believe cash flow will be for the 18-19 school year. There's also $2 to $3 million or so that is still in the works on specific funding for basically our highest need students and making sure that essential services are meeting the needs of those students. And so I'm projecting a conservative estimate on the projected expenditures, and that will get more real as we have the ADM count, and we also have finalized budgets here with students once they are fully recognized and fully staffed with the teachers. At the same time, capital projects, we've updated our column C for the property tax funds. So column C is the projected circuit breaker. That's we're having it's a positive experience for us as far as what it was in the original projection versus is now. And so our projected net revenues are, when it's all said and done, what we've asked for, what's been certified, what they're going to take away from the circuit breaker, add back our miscellaneous income. That net revenue is what our advisors, our team is using as far as cash flow coming in. Our projected expenditures, working with Manny specifically on the transportation team, aligning the work that he's doing to continue the cost containment, keep those projected expenditures as tight as we can to the projected revenues. You'll still see some property tax deficit, but at the same time, the general fund continues to show that structural deficit. Total projected deficit over the 4 funds, just under $21 million. Looking at the cash flow, we talked about the 4 funds. There's the cash total as of 6/30, $53 million. You add those net cash flows in. My projected cash flow at 6/30/2019, absent any additional inflows or significant shifts in net cash flow, yields about $32 million at the end of June 30, 2019. So how does that reflect when we add in the rainy day fund and we're trying to meet our cash management policy? So same balance at 6/30/2018, our projected net cash flow. Our ending 6/30/2019 is in need to evaluate, is it at 8%? Well, with the revenue shifts on the projects on the property tax side, there is no need for the rainy day fund to be applied to any of those funds. But applying all of the rainy day fund to the general fund allows us to retain that floor of 8% or 1 month in reserves. So in the previous slide, you would have seen in April, we were applying some of the rainy day fund across the property tax funds. But now, because of better revenue estimates for property tax funds, the general fund receives the full bulk of the rainy day fund and retains that 8% threshold. But what's out there? What could come into play and actually land in some of those accounts? We've talked about general obligation bonds. So we're going to be finalizing those. Those are the bonds that fund technology, $10 million of our high school reinvention, and reimbursing our CPF. So $34 million was our general obligation bonds, and that is not reflected on slide 14 as far as inflows into capital projects. When we look at food service funds, it was noted in the referendum ask and some of the assumptions, there's some food service funds that we're looking at having a waiver from the USDA allow us to have our current excess funds in the food service fund to reimburse expenditures that were originally paid for by the general fund. So for the food service center, that's over here, Emerson and 25th, 30th Street, that was paid with general fund dollars back in the 2000s. And we've been working for the last 2 years to, one, deploy strategically our excess reserves in the food service, but also two, what is a way to have those funds be released? And working with the U.S. Federal Administration of USDA, we were hopeful that that is a potential waiver that can have as an inflow into our cash balance of general fund $17 million. That's not included here. Additionally, our operating capital referendum funds, when we were doing the budget development, we talked about we will receive half of that ask on June 30, 2019. So updating that, this is not guaranteed. This is the number, though, that if those would pass, the operating referendum amount received on June 30, 2019 would be around $14 million, which is half of the annual ask at that 220 8-year level. So $28 million a year, half of that $14 million. $14 million is not reflected in the cash flow that we've projected here. So again, bottom line is we're above our floors. I think we'll only get better if some or all of these occur. So finally, just want to close reminding, how did Weston Young get here to this opportunity to serve as Chief Financial Manager? I just continue to reflect back over the last 3 or 4 months. In August of 2014, we've been talking about cash flows. We've been talking about it since then, not just recently. At that time, I said, cash balance will decrease each year unless there are changes to recurring net cash flow. And over the past 3 years, it's been my goal to lead efforts to vigorously review and pursue opportunities to increase recurring revenue or optimize annual expenditures. And I hope that you've seen that we've done that. And despite our best efforts to increase revenues and implement operational efficiencies up to this point, IPS continues to operate with a structural deficit. There's a positive look back at 17-18 expenditures that we finished the year better aligned with available property tax funding. And there's a positive outlook for 18-19. The revenue projections are improved since the budget development process. But we continue to seek out sustainable cash flow alignment to meet short-term and long-term strategic initiatives to improve student outcomes. This time I'll take questions.
Remind me back on the food service funds, what amount are we requesting from USDA?
So in the school lunch fund, which is currently at 630, it was 22 million. The requirement that we're shooting for is a 3-month reserve. That's the limit. That's what we're allowed to have. So that's about $5 million based upon our annual needs to run our food service operation. That's basically 3 months of reserves. So the 22 million at 630 minus the 5 that we believe is our working balance and our allowed balance is how we arrive at the 17.
And what about the previous payments that were used to purchase the building in Emerson? You were saying where general funds were used in getting that.
So in the waiver request process, it's showing the documentation that occurred. And so that's what our finance team, that's what our legislative team, our advocacy team is working with Dr. Farabee and the USDA to document and show this is how it happened. We're seeking the waiver.
I was on the board when we voted to build that new facility and food service facility, and for some reason I thought that the funds used to build that facility were food service funds, but you're saying it came out of the general fund?
Correct.
Those funds, I mean, I'm wondering if it just never got transferred, because that was my understanding, is that the district had been holding back, had been holding that balance year over year to fund that new food service facility. I mean, I'm straining my memory because it was, 20 years ago or 18 years ago, but that was my recollection at the time because we had a huge budget or a huge balance then. I mean, maybe they turned it down and that's why it ended up coming out of the general fund, but it surprises me because I thought that that some of those funds that were in food service paid for that facility, but clearly that's not true.
So the finance records don't show that, and there's been a lot of review of it by attorneys and finance professionals the last 2 years. I'll say this, all 17 is not the purchase of the building of that facility. It's also the excess that because IPS food service is so efficient that it's less costly than the reimbursement we get from the feds. We have recently, the last 2 years, been deploying our food service funds to spend down that. So it was it was 30 million, and we've strategically spent down our food service. Scott can review what all the food service team has done. Increasing quality, bus stop cafe, cafeteria remodels, and at some point trying to spend that down. So it isn't just, hey, IPS Western Young, write me a check for 17 million because you're over your allotment. I mean, that's what could happen. And so at this point, it's a combination of we've documented this plus a waiver request that literally is just saying we have kids in need, we have a deficit. Look at how we're trying to function in a school district environment where we're serving students in high need and poverty, which is what a food program is designed for. So it's this waiver process that we're going through that within potentially 60, 90 days we could have an answer.
Okay. But normally the food service funds can't be used for capital? Is that normal or?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yes. A couple years ago, when we did the addition at William Penn, we asked for a waiver at that time to use food service funds, and we were denied. So no construction can be paid for out of food service.
That was the cafeteria expansion.
That was a
Not just for William Penn Elementary, it was for the cafeteria
Correct.
expansion.
Yeah, we did a $2 million cafeteria expansion.
So we can feed the kids, we just can't give them a place to eat. Is that the
No.
logic?
But I do think there's been equipment
Yes.
and other resources that have been purchased with food service dollars.
They can do anything but pay for construction. They couldn't put a roof on, even on the cafeteria. They wouldn't allow us to pay even for the renovation of current kitchen space. We had to pay for that. Now we can buy all kinds of equipment, new stoves, tables, serving lines. We can pay for all that out of the food service budget. We can also pay for vehicles as long as they're food service vehicles, packaging equipment for the production facility, but just not construction.
It just logically doesn't make any sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, can I just add? And I just want to, are you done with your presentation? Oh, I just wanted to
I can
thank
talk for a
you
long time.
for all
I
the
got
work
numbers.
that you've been doing on these. I know you live and breathe this stuff every day and probably lose a lot of sleep over it. And I just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts and your team. You've worked really hard on looking at ways to increase revenue. The focus on return on our investments, I think, has been huge. And I think a lot of it is overlooked, and I just wanted to say how much, we appreciate you. And and also, you've put together a great finance committee with a lot of good, not myself included, but a lot of good minds sitting there at the table that are volunteering their time to give the best advice they can. So, and that's a lot to manage. And so I just wanted to say how much you're appreciated.
Thank you. It's a great team effort. I just highlight it's also a team that experienced reductions when central service was asked to reduce. So we're doing this. We're keeping the pedal down. we're doing the same that we're doing with less people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, the last report for this evening in section 6 is an update on our opportunity culture model. Very fortunate to have Brian Hassel, who is the co-president of Public Impact, who has been supporting the district in the implementation of opportunity culture. Public Impact provides support for professional development and also coaching for the district to implement this model. Brian Kadesh also will collaborate with Ryan in this presentation and report to the board and the community and give an update of where we are in implementation. It's important to note that we're in our third cohort of the opportunity culture model to better leverage talent in the district. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bryn and welcome Brian as well.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. We are very excited to continue our partnership working with Opportunity Culture. We are moving into our 4th year of the partnership, our 3rd year of implementation work within the schools. We were fortunate to be a part of the 3rd national cohort of schools with Opportunity Culture and Public Impact, and I'm very excited to have Brian Hassel, the co-president, join us this evening.
All right, thanks, Dr. Farabee. Thanks, Commissioners. Thanks, Brent. And also thanks to my colleague Cassie Lutterlow, who's here and works closely with Star Hairston on your team with Opportunity Culture. So glad to be here. So first, I want to just say a little bit about what is Opportunity Culture. It's a national initiative. I need my clicker. It's a national initiative that's working in districts around the country to do 2 things. First, extend the reach of excellent teachers to more students. And secondly, provide advancement opportunities for excellent teachers. And the way this works is that great teachers have the chance to take on different roles in schools where they lead small teams of other teachers. They continue teaching, but they also help those other teachers improve their practice. And also they can extend their reach by just having more students working with them during the school day. And that both extends their reach to more kids, but also gives them the chance to advance in their career, earn more, and therefore be able to continue teaching while moving ahead in their careers. The specific goals that we set in Opportunity Culture IPS were to provide more students with great teachers, to create leadership roles for teachers, retain the best teachers by having these opportunities, increase the time teachers have to plan and collaborate together, and then give additional compensation for the increased responsibility that teachers are able to take on. And you can see in the next slide where some of this work is happening.
So very excited. In the first year of the cohort, we had 6 schools that participated. All 6 of these schools were transformation zone schools that year, so we piloted within the transformation zone. In year 2, we added 8 schools and retained the previous 6, so we were up to 14 schools that year. And in 2018-2019, for this year, we've added another 5 schools. You will see referenced on here, though, that not all of our schools are still participating due to Innovation Restart or the secondary reconfigurations for the schools.
You can see here both how the number of schools has grown, but also the number of teachers who have these roles. So the multi-classroom leader role, that's the one leading a small team of other teachers. Teachers in that role can earn as much as $18,300 if they lead a larger team, and they can earn $6,000 to $11,000 as well for leading smaller teams. Expanded impact teachers, they reach more students directly, and they can earn $6,800 for taking on that role. There are other roles as well. Aspiring teachers, folks who are training to be a teacher, can also play a role in these schools, along with what we call Reach Associates, which are paraprofessionals who support the team, support the teacher leaders, help them free the time to do the work that they are doing. You can see there's now 45 total OC roles across your schools.
So some of the highlights which have contributed to successful implementation have included utilizing student-based allocation, hiring of a director of opportunity culture to lead professional development, piloting within the transformation zone schools. It helped us to begin our work there. Local support from Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation, Joyce Foundation, and the Glick Philanthropies, and then our partnership with Public Impact.
want to spend most of the rest of the time talking about how it's going with opportunity culture in the district. And first by talking about retention. So you can see on this slide that when we look at the retention of the multi-classroom leaders and the EITs, the ones getting these advanced roles, it's very high. So 86% last year stayed in the district, and 94% in the most recent year stayed in the district after having these roles, which is significantly higher than what we see for all IPS staff. So those advancement opportunities with pay are holding teachers in the district. And then if you look school by school, you can see this is the retention of staff within the school. How many stayed in the school itself? 69% across all of IPS. But you can see most of the opportunity culture schools above that line and some of them well above that line. So these roles are enabling not just the district to retain the teachers, but the individual schools to do so as well. And part of the reason for that is the high levels of satisfaction we see on the part of the teachers. So 100% of the folks in advanced roles saying they would like opportunity culture to continue. High and growing percentages of other teachers in the school also saying that. Teachers saying that they receive feedback that help them improve their teaching and that they can earn more if they work in an opportunity culture school. And then 69% of teachers agreeing that the principal or the assistant principal takes more actions to support their success than they did before the multi-classroom leader began leading their team. So this teacher satisfaction is probably what drives retention. But then ultimately we're looking for what is the effect on student learning. We want to see great teachers reaching more kids and students learning more. So what can we say about that? I can't say as much as I would like to because we only have 1 year of data that we've been able to look at. We're waiting for this year's data on growth to come in and take a look at that. And we have a limited number of schools in that first year that we can see, but here are some of the findings from that analysis. So the line across the board is non-opportunity culture IPS students. How much did they grow according to median growth percentiles? All OC schools slightly above that line. And then you can see school by school, some of the schools well above that line, but others below the line. The two high schools in this case that are no longer part of opportunity culture were below. And that's in math. Reading, again, the line of all non-opportunity culture students. Opportunity culture schools slightly above that. Again, a pattern of some above and some below, with especially those two high schools falling pretty far below that line. So we see this as a start towards getting the kind of student results we know are possible. When Brookings and AIR took a look nationally at the Opportunity Culture Initiative in January, here's what they found. Teachers who were on the teams led by multi-classroom leaders started out getting average student growth, 50th percentile. Once they were on those teams, their growth jumped up to the 66th to 72nd percentile in reading and up to the 75th to 85th percentile in math. And these were in the 15,000 students in 3 districts in the earliest part of the Opportunity Culture Initiative. So we see real potential to have bigger jumps in student achievement by putting teachers on MCL teams, and that's what we're shooting for here in IPS as well. A couple of things to note about that study. All the multi-classroom leaders in that study had prior high growth before becoming a multi-classroom leader. So they're very selective. And also they had pretty small teams, 5 teachers as the median on their teams. And we've really learned from that we need those small teams with highly, very carefully selected multi-classroom leaders to see the impact. So what could IPS do to move even farther in that direction? A couple of notes here. One is by growing the number of MCL teams, spreading them across the schools. Only 2 of your schools at this point have school-wide multi-classroom leaders. The reach is about 44.8% in ELA and 45.2% in math. So they're covering a little less than half the school with this model. So taking it all the way is one of the recommendations. And then secondly, refining that selection process to make sure you're getting the best teachers you can into those roles so they can then convey that expertise to other teachers.
So looking forward to this school year, we have 4 main goals that we're hoping to achieve. The first one would be achieving strong OC designs focused on that school-wide MCLs. We do want to try to get to 100% reach within the schools that are currently opportunity culture. So we'll be looking more for the MCL roles. We've seen those grow the quickest since we've started the initiative. We also want to support current OC schools to refine and scale, again, taking it larger. We also ask them every year to redesign. So if something didn't work for them, if they want to try a different part of the model, we have them collaborate together so they're really able to work through what might be the best fit for their building. We also want to strengthen recruitment and selection process. We want to increase our pool of applicants for the MCL, EIT, Reach Associate, and aspiring teacher roles. And Star Hairston is doing a great job right now working with Human Resources to really boost our candidate pool for us as we work into our next design session. And then we're going to grow OC schools within IPS. So we have a call-out session coming up with principals. We have other principals who currently have OC that are helping us to recruit other principals by telling them what a great opportunity it has been for their school and what they've been able to see. And so we're just excited to be able to continue the work and see it grow within IPS. Thank you.
I just have a comment. And I can't, who's the principal at Blue Wallace?
Jeremy Ball.
Jeremy Baugh was one of our school spotlights last year and talked about the opportunity culture in his building. And, you know, he should be doing your television spots, I think. He's done some amazing things over at Lew Wallace, and it was very, you know, we have these spotlights every month, but I think that was one of the first ones that was a boundary school, and, you know, having a successful school with a strong leader. And anyway, I just remember he was very enthusiastic about opportunity culture. And, you know, when you hear that from a building leader, you know that, you know, a good building leader, you know that it's something that we ought to be trying to expand. So.
Yeah, Jeremy did a great job. He helped with our design sessions this summer and really presented during that. He also went out, I believe it was Colorado or Arizona, and was part of a cohort out there of school leaders working through how to make opportunity culture even better.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for your work.
Commissioner Hoops.
Thank you for your presentation and all the details. I have a question about funding. Is the additional compensation funded by the organizations that you cited?
It is not. The additional compensation is actually funded by the schools themselves. So we work within their student-based allocation and determine what opportunities they might have through attrition of positions or through utilizing dollars in a more specified way. They can be as creative as possible. That expanded impact teacher often is reaching more students, so that might be a larger class size within there, just anything we can find within their student-based allocations.
Yes, thank you. So looking at some of our numbers, I know you said it's early, but you've been working in other states longer. Can you say anything about how we compare in terms of the retention impact in particular? Because I know that's something that we're really focused on.
Yes, your retention numbers are really strong. I don't see those numbers that high and that far above the district average that often. So I think that's very strong. And it's really those student numbers that you want to focus on moving up in the coming years.
One thing you mentioned was the recruitment and looking for teachers. Where do you look? Where do you try to?
So we get support with that through our Human Resources Department. They help create the post. They put it out on all of the outlets for us to recruit teachers. We've had support from Cassie. Brian mentioned she's been working with us for a while. She helps us with that as well. Mindy has been extremely instrumental in helping us to expand our pool. Again, that's a focus for us this year. So we've already been meeting with the Public Relations Department and with Human Resources to make sure that we can even make that more robust.
Do you look for a certain number each year, or a request to the schools, or how does that work?
Each school goes through a design process or a redesign process that determines how many of each of these kinds of roles do we need. So as Bryn said, Mindy and her team are already trying to build a pool, but exactly how many are needed will come out of that design process, which happens in the early part of the 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryn. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Commissioner, moving on to the next section is unfinished business. There only one item in unfinished business, which is item 7.01. There's no action for this item at this time. Staff is continuing to work on integrating the teen dating policy and procedures with our existing Title IX policies and procedures to ensure alignment and compliance with relevant legal requirements. This is something that will likely come back to commissioners for action potentially at our September action session. So if any questions where we are, again, we'll come back on this item.
I just had a question. I know this was a student-driven policy change, and we continue to communicate with those students so they understand what the process is and what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. That's one reason we're not asking for action just yet. Internally, IPS amended our Title IX policy. We do want to review our proposed amendments and the potential for an additional policy beyond amending Title IX with students. So I'll be checking in with those young people in the coming weeks to have that discussion and make sure their voice continues to be heard on this topic.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
Commissioner, this concludes the unfinished business section for action. The next section is new business. There are 6 items for action. The first is item 8.01. It's a recommendation for commissioners to approve resolution number 7802, which is a partnership for market analysis and community engagement for John Marshall High School. This effort is being supported by Glick Philanthropies. Recommend commissioners approve the resolution as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7802, approving the market analysis and community engagement as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8.02. It's also a recommendation for market analysis and community engagement. The administration is recommending that we have authorization to enter into an agreement with SB Friedman that will provide support with market analysis. This organization has experience with supporting public entities and also in the private sector, specifically across the Midwest. Again, recommending that commissioners approve the proposal as presented to support market analysis and community engagement for the disposition process associated with Broad Ripple High School.
Do I have a motion to approve the engaging SB Friedman for market analysis of Broad Ripple High School as outlined in the proposal?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, the next item is item 8.03, which includes a recommendation for approval of a resolution associated with the implementation of our Enroll Indy partnership. There are 3 areas that we're requesting that commissioners approve that are embedded in the resolution. The resolution number is 7803. We're requesting that commissioners approve the transition from our internal enrollment system for pre-K enrollment to be integrated into the Enroll Indy One Match platform. Also requesting authorization to transition from a 3-round enrollment lottery process to a 2-round enrollment process. The dates and the number of seat allocations will be presented to commissioners later as to be determined. And then also authorizing the district to contribute financially to Enroll Indy to support the platform for the enrollment for the 2019-20 school year.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution 7803, approving the Enroll Indy partnership as presented?
So moved. Oh, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry. Discussion.
Just real quickly, I just want to remark again what I said on Tuesday at our agenda review session. I think that this is exactly the kind of effort that we need to uplift and continue doing. It is data, good data. It is better data than we've had previously, and I think it will help us continue to make really good, smart decisions for our students. So I'm very encouraged by this partnership. I hope it will continue to expand and grow and develop.
Bentley?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest selling point, and Patrick Carroll talked about this on Tuesday, is the significant increase in the number of families that, applied through the enroll-ND process to one of our choice schools. And I think that is something significant. And the data behind all of that is available too, which I think is helpful in not only knowing that we are reaching all of our families, but it also helps us, I think, with future planning as well. So I was really impressed with some of the data that we saw on Tuesday, and it supports the continued partnership. I'm also happy that we're incorporating the preschool program, because it didn't make any sense to run two separate platforms, one for preschool and one for K-12. It's so it's confusing anyway, and it makes it even more confusing when you have two separate platforms. So I think that it just made logic sense to move to one platform for both pre-K and the K-12. So that's all I'd say. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, next item is item 8.04, is a recommendation for commissioners to approve amendment to the contract for the construction managers as constructors agreement with Powers & Sons and Davis & Associates. This was presented on Tuesday evening. We're happy to review the overview, but request that commissioners approve the amended contract to move forward with the renovations of our high school in Phase 1B as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the amended guaranteed maximum price contract with the Powers Davis CMC for completion of Phase 1B of the project as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'd just like to say I'm glad to hear that they are under budget and before on time, so that's great to hear. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, next item is item 8.05. This is an item that Commissioner Bentley framed very well in the report from Finance Committee. She referenced the guidelines in which the administration would go forward with refunding the 2009A bonds. We request that commissioners approve resolution number 7804 as presented. And again, there is a overview document that was presented on Tuesday evening. We also added additional context to that presentation that provides the guidelines that was previously discussed on Tuesday. Request again that commissioners approve resolution number 7804 as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7804, approving the evaluation of a bond refunding as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The last item, commissioners, is a policy revision that was presented on Tuesday evening, a proposed amendment to Board Policy 8660 related to transportation waivers for employees to transport student and private vehicles. This is the first presentation of this policy amendment, and so this is a policy amendment that will need to sit unless commissioners feel the need to waive our waiting period and approve at this meeting.
The proposed amendment to policy 866 will lay on the table for 30 days and be presented for final action at our September session. Are there any questions on this item?
I mean, is there a reason the administration would want us to take action tonight, or is it something that can wait for 30 days?
Yeah, we're recommending that this waits for 30 days.
Okay, all right.
At this time, would any of our commissioners wish to offer closing comments? I'd just like to say that I was able to visit 2 schools at the opening of school on our first day, and things were going very well at School 51 and 56. And the students were moving along and getting along well, and the staff didn't seem very harried, but things were going very well. So I'd like to give kudos to those 2 schools.
I guess I do have one thing, and I'm going to put our board administrator on the spot. And it's along the same lines, because I had asked him informally whether he'd been receiving lots of back-to-school phone calls, kind of gauging how things were going by the number of complaints that we get. And I think he gave me some good news, so I'd appreciate if you would share that a little bit.
Sure. When I first started in 2015, I think I've shared with commissioners, the first week or so of school was my phone ringing off the hook with complaints about transportation and buses being late and issues with this open of school. And I'm happy to report that I think I only got 2 calls this year. And so I hope that speaks highly of the work that Manny and his team has done, and all of our school leaders, in having a smooth open to the school year.
Thank you.
Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mulholland and commissioners, for highlighting that. As a part of our opening school process, we issue a survey to school administrators, principals, and assistant principals included across all our schools to assess the district's planning and support for schools. And the preliminary data, what we continue to hear is the same praise for the response of transportation, knowing that we're not yet ready to run a victory lap, but we do feel good about the response and the level of service. So again, thanks to Scott Martin and the transportation team, Manny Mendez, for their leadership. The final note is something that we're excited about celebrating tomorrow. For the last couple of years, I've had the pleasure of sitting at the honor read table for Start for Art with the mayor and the Arts Council, and was always hoping that we have the ability to recognize one of our own schools, and we've recognized some staff members in the past. And so pleased to report that staff and the community will celebrate Edison School of the Arts on tomorrow at the Start for Art luncheon. So really excited about Edison being a premier school for visual and performing arts here in Indianapolis. And with the leadership of Nathan Tuttle, I believe we'll go beyond that and be a bellwether for visual and performing arts. So again, congratulations to Edison School for the Arts.
Hearing nothing, our next meeting will be our work session on Tuesday, September 18th in the Media Center of the Rosa McClellan Montessori School 91. Having completed all items on the agenda, the meeting stands adjourned.